Hi, I'm Cavin Elizabeth and I'm a wedding photographer based in San Diego, and today I'm going to be talking about the interesting topic of getting your wedding published. So this is a video that's going to be helpful for brides and grooms if this is something that you care about, or even wedding vendors who are trying to get published more. Now I will say that not every wedding has to be published. It's not a bad thing if your wedding's not published. You might not even care about this. Maybe your vendors care but you don't, or maybe you care and your vendors don't, whatever it may be. Just know that it doesn't mean that you have a bad wedding if it's not published. That's like really not a thing. It doesn't really matter like that your wedding is publishable or not, because it's your wedding and it was probably the perfect day for you. But when I say getting published, I mean getting your wedding published on a publication like Style Me Pretty, Ruffled, Green Wedding Shoes, Wedding Sparrow, any of those sorts of places. Now there are also local blogs as well. So in California, we have Southern California Bride. I know in DC, they have a lot of different local blogs and magazines. So things like that are really, really fun, because if you are the kind of person who would love to see your wedding out there in the world to inspire other brides and grooms, that is going to be getting published, and that way you're going to have a larger audience to see all of the wonderful things that you did. So again, like your wedding doesn't have to be published. If it's not published, it doesn't mean it's a bad wedding. Just want to get that out of the way. So this video going forward is really for the people who care about it, want to have their wedding published, and it's something that they find exciting to have shared with the world. I do think that there is a myth around getting published that your wedding has to be high-end. Now I will say it does help if you have a larger budget, because you can do more things with decor, which is mostly what the blogs are interested in. There are a couple of blogs that are more interested in the couple and their story. And if you have a really, really, really incredible story and your wedding was photographed beautifully, even if you don't have a lot of decor, there are chances that that might get picked up as well. But pretty much you've got to have unique decor. And I will say that even if you have a lot of decor, but it's not unique and it's in a color palette that has been seen over and over again, something like ivory blush with pops of gold, that is a very, very popular palette that blogs have seen so many times. And so a palette like that is going to be incredibly hard to be published unless there is something unique about it, or it was just shot so beautifully that the publication cannot refuse it. Now, there are many different blogs, and I would say that you should definitely take a look at the blogs before you submit with permission of the photographer, or before a photographer submits, whatever it may be, because everybody has a different style. So I would never submit a ballroom wedding to Green Wedding Shoes unless that was a really crazy, unique, cool, urban type ballroom. I just would never send something that's not a fit. And the easiest way that you can see which blogs are a fit for your style is to just go on their Instagrams. That's pretty quick to digest. You can just scroll through the feed. Are the photos really dark and moody? Are they bright and airy? What kinds of things are they showing? Are they showing mostly neutrals, or are they showing a lot of color? So for example, a 100-layer cake tends to feature way more color than somewhere like Wedding Sparrow or Magnolia Rouge. And those two publications tend to show more film photography. So it's kind of all over the place, but you should definitely make sure that you have some places in mind, because you don't want to be sending your wedding to somewhere that's not a fit, because it will get rejected, which I will talk about that in a bit. So really the best way to get published is to ensure that you not only have a great photographer who has an eye for details. If you do not choose a photographer who is used to shooting details or who shoots them beautifully, chances are that's really not going to make the cut to publication. You need to have a photographer who is really good at shooting details. I love that part of the day. My couples love detail shots. They've put a lot of time and money into deciding what decor would be at their wedding, so they want that photographed. And a lot of times the bride and groom might not get to see the reception space before guests are in it. So these photos are sometimes the only thing they have that shows the space in its pristine state. So I always make sure to get a lot of great detail photos, different angles, mostly vertical shots, because blogs tend to prefer vertical photos. Vertical works better on Pinterest, it works better on Instagram. So most blogs are going to show vertical. I kind of see things vertically anyway when I'm shooting, unless I'm trying to get a really wide horizontal shot of stuff. But that's one of the things to keep in mind. Now, I will say that, there are different blogs who might be more into high-end stuff like Grace Ormond. You're never going to get a low-budget DIY wedding on somewhere like Grace Ormond. It's just not going to happen, and that's fine. There are plenty of blogs for DIY, lower budget, all sorts of things. There are blogs for very non-traditional, unique, alternative weddings. There are blogs for really classic weddings. There's blogs for mountain weddings. It's all over the place. So there is always going to be a good fit for you, but make sure that you have a photographer who captures those details beautifully. And then the second thing is to make sure that you have at least a couple of things that are unique, that really haven't been seen before. So in the wedding world, a lot of things get copied over and over and over. Brides will basically take Pinterest and say, I want to do exactly this. That's fine if you want that, but just know if you're copying things that have already been seen, chances that you're gonna get your wedding published are much slimmer. Blogs want to inspire brides with new and fresh content. So for that reason, you should have something a little bit unique in your wedding. And hopefully you guys can personalize that and make it something that really shows your personalities and really tells the story of your day beautifully. Now, when blogs are wanting images for publication, they typically want mostly details and then portraits. Most blogs do not want reception shots, as in with guests in them, toast, things like that. They might take a couple handful of those. They want to see mostly details, couple moments from the ceremony, maybe a few moments from the reception, and then tons of portraits. But still, details are going to be the most prominent thing in the submission because that's what inspires brides. Now, if you have a wedding and you guys are all going to be really fashionable, they might feature a lot more of your portraits, and maybe that's your unique touch. Maybe your decor isn't super unique or super over the top, but maybe your fashion is, and that's something that can definitely get you picked up by fashion-forward blogs. I've seen blogs where it didn't really have that much in terms of details, but the bride had a really cool dress, and so everybody wanted to feature it because it was so different. It wasn't your typical white dress, it was colorful, so things like that are really neat and interesting. Now, the next couple of tips are more for photographers out there. When you are shooting the tables in the reception, remove everything from the table that is not part of the design. So what I mean by that are salt and pepper shakers. Always remove those unless they're cute and part of the design. Typically they're not. Typically they're very ugly, they're huge eyesores. I see this time and time again. I'll see a beautiful photo of a place setting and then a salt and pepper shaker, and for me that really ruins the photo. Now I am really picky about this stuff. Blogs are too. They're not gonna not publish the wedding because there's salt and pepper shakers in there, but that is definitely not a photo that they're going to be as happy about sharing because of those distractions. Or sugar packets. Try to get shots of the table before bread and butter goes down. If I ever see a table and there's just way too many bread and butter plates and it looks really crowded, I'll remove a couple of those bread and butter plates and then shoot it and then put them back. Always put stuff back. Don't make the catering staff upset with you, but basically try to get the clean shot. If there are table numbers, but they're definitely not part of the design, they're just, the venue provides them, they're black and white, and maybe the design is really colorful and fun, I will take that out because the bride and groom did not choose that table number as part of their design, and therefore it doesn't have a place there in the photos. Now, of course, guests need to use those, but again, anything that is not part of the design, anything that was not a choice by the couple, I will tend to remove. Now, that does not mean I'm removing napkins and plates. I will leave those on there, but if there's just an extra bunch of cluttered bread and butter plates, those can come out, stuff like that. Another great tip for photographers, but also for brides and grooms to be thinking about when planning out the details of your day, maybe even your venue, is that whenever I am shooting a wedding, say their color palette is blue and green and white, I am going to try to look for backgrounds throughout the day that have blue in them or green and white because that makes it really cohesive. I would never shoot a bunch of portraits in front of an orange wall if the bride had a soft ivory French blue palette. I would never do that unless they requested it, but I would do that if they wanted it, and then I would take them somewhere that was more flattering and that was more cohesive. That's not only great for publication, it's also great for the couple's albums. If you're flipping through an album or a gallery and all of a sudden you see a crazy different color, it really stands out and it kind of breaks up the flow. So I make sure to shoot cohesively. And that's a reason that I bring styling boards to weddings. It's a board with a surface over it, either plaster or fabric. I match that or at least have a color that is complementary to the wedding palette. So that's something that I do to ensure that I can at least shoot the bride and groom small details on a surface that's beautiful, because sometimes you might be at a venue and there's no surface that you like, or maybe there's a pretty surface but it doesn't match the wedding design whatsoever. So again, it's going to look very, very different and inconsistent from the wedding photos. Now, one thing that you can really do, and this should kind of be done either way, but if the wedding that you're having, if it's your wedding or if you're shooting it, if the wedding doesn't have that many details as in decor, one great thing you can do is really get a lot of environmental details. So look for pretty statues or pretty, even like a wall with windows. I've done that before if it's really beautiful. Anything that really showcases the venue that's beautiful and is gonna look really nice in the gallery together. So some of my weddings are lower on details. I get more environmentals. I always get environmentals anyway, but I will make a point to go out during dinner and grab some extra ones just to make sure that we're filling out everything nicely and there's enough kind of storytelling details to be great for publication and also great for the couple's gallery. When it comes to the amount of photos blogs want submitted, each one will typically tell you on their submission page. Now, if you're a bride or if you're a photographer, this is important to know. Sometimes brides will submit on their own. You do need to have the permission of the photographer because you never know if they already have it in a queue somewhere for another blog. And if it gets picked up by two places and they're exclusive places, or one of them is exclusive, meaning they don't want it published anywhere else until after they've done it, that can get everybody in a lot of trouble. So please make sure you have permission if you are a bride to submit. Now, photographers, you should make sure you have your couple's permission to submit. I get that in my model release. All of my couples are usually thrilled to have their weddings published. They're really into social media. They love having things out in the world. But typically the amount of photos that you will be sharing is anywhere from 70 to 100. Now, I will say it is better to have fewer but better rather than more, and it's kind of a mix of duplicates and everything is repeating. So I would rather have a very solid gallery of 70 images than kind of a mix of great images and repetitive images and mediocre images, but I have 100. So less can certainly be more, but you need to curate. You need to make sure that you're not submitting things that look the same. You need to have enough angles of different things. Make sure you have a good mix of details and portraits. You can include some guest shots if they're holding something like a signature cocktail, or if the guest is wearing an outfit that matches the wedding color palette, that can be really nice to have in the submission. But again, remember, no like dancing shots on the dance floor unless it's maybe the first dance and you submit 1 or 2 photos from it. But typically blogs want the details and the portraits, and most blogs, not all, and there are exceptions to this, but most blogs are going to want natural light photos throughout the day, depending on their style. Most blogs that I would be submitting to are wanting natural light, or at least flash that looks very much like natural light. They don't want really contrasty, crazy looking images. They typically like softer light because it shows the details in a more flattering way. So these are all helpful things to keep in mind when you're curating your gallery. Now, one of the last things I'll talk about is getting rejected. I still get rejected all the time from blogs. I know several photographers who are super popular. They also still get rejected. You're always going to get no's and yeses. So it's something to keep in mind. If a blog says your wedding is not a fit, that's okay. It doesn't mean anything bad about your wedding. It just means either they don't feature that style, or perhaps there are not enough unique details for their style, or maybe they're already about to submit and publish something that is very, very similar, so you just kind of got in at the wrong time. Now, I will typically, if I have a really great wedding that I want submitted, if it doesn't get accepted the first place, I'll move down my list. I tend to start at the top and move my way down, so I might start with something like Martha Stewart Weddings or Style Me Pretty and this sort of similar blogs, and then if those are saying no, I might move down to a smaller blog. So pretty much I will try until I feel like it's no longer worth taking the time that it takes, which is quite a lot sometimes to get everything together. But most of the time, if you just keep trying, you're gonna get a yes. Now, if you're a photographer, let me just tell you, my Style Me Pretty dashboard has so many rejections. It took me years to get accepted. And when I finally did, I was really excited about it. And now I'm getting accepted by them a lot more often, which is really great. And I have a fantastic feature on December 23rd that I'm super excited about coming out with them. But it's the sort of thing where where if you don't succeed, try again. Do not let it get discouraged. And finally, if you do get accepted, make sure that you promote it like crazy on Instagram. Blogs really appreciate when you promote the feature through social media. Now, this is especially important for vendors. If blogs notice that you're getting featured and you're never promoting it, they might not want to promote you again, because remember, their main goal is to drive traffic to their website for several different reasons. So if you're a vendor, please promote that to high heavens. I always promote it at least a couple of times. I will blog about it, link to the feature. So blogs really appreciate that, and it increases my chances of getting featured with them again, which is fantastic. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you are thinking about having your wedding published, definitely let me know if you have any questions in the comment section. I'm more than happy to help. I wish you guys the best of luck with everything. I'm sure your wedding will have a very wonderful home after it is published. Have a great week, guys. Bye.